Shalom, I'm David Mencer, spokesman for the National Public Diplomacy Directorate in the Prime Minister's office. It's Monday, June 30th, day 633 since the October 7th atrocities. Please put your questions in the chat of this Zoom with your name and your outlet, and I'll take them after a very few, very brief points that I'm going to share with you. We begin today with a heavy heart and the most painful of updates on the fallen heroes of the IDF. Since the start of this war, the number of IDF fatalities has now reached 880. Each one is not just a number, but a world lost. And today I must share the heartbreaking news of one such world. Sergeant Yisrael Natan Rosenfeld was aged just 20 years old, and from Ra'anana, he fell in battle in northern Gaza. Yisrael will be laid to rest this afternoon at 4 p.m. in the military section of the Ra'anana cemetery. This is a shattering loss for the Rosenfeld family and for his mother's family, the Monacandam families. It's also personal to me. I grew up with his mother, Sam. The pain of losing a child is unfathomable, and there are no words that can truly ease the anguish of his parents, Ari and Sam, nor of their family and their community. We embrace them all with all of our hearts. We grieve with them, and we stand with all the families who have sacrificed their beloved sons and daughters in this war, a war not of our choosing, but a war of survival nonetheless. The price of defending our homeland is unbearably high, and each fallen soldier is not only a loss to one family, but also to our entire nation. May the memory of Yisrael Rosenfeld and the memory of all of our heroes be a source of strength, pride, and eternal blessing. Next to Gaza, Israel has always stated that the war against the Hamas terror organization will continue until all of its goals are met. The release of all of our hostages, both living and deceased, the elimination of the military and governance capabilities of Hamas, of the Hamas terrorist organization, and the removal of the terrorist threat from Gaza. For Israel, we are exercising our right to defend ourselves in a just war against the terrorist forces who invaded our territory. They savagely murdered 1,200 people. They raped and they mutilated our women. They beheaded our men. They burnt babies alive and abducted over 250 people into the terror tunnels of Gaza. I can today share with you that the Prime Minister is working to end the campaign in Gaza through the release of the hostages and the defeat of Hamas as soon as possible. The obstacle lies with Hamas, but we are working through various means to overcome it. Now, with the success of Operation Rising Lion, in partnership with our American allies, many opportunities have opened up now following this victory. The Prime Minister made clear just yesterday we need to, first of all, get the hostages out and resolve the Gaza issue and defeat Hamas. The Prime Minister made clear that we will achieve both tasks, and moving more broadly to the opportunities for peace in the entire region, broad regional possibilities are opening up. Okay, that's all I have to share with you for today. That's the end of our briefing. We'll now take your questions. Please put your questions in the chat, and we will take your questions. Remember to put your name and your news outlet for your questions. Okay. Okay, first question here is from Leo Soroka at the Washington Post. And your questions, you've got two questions here. I'll take them together. Is it only the Gaza Health Foundation that has been allowed to deliver aid into Gaza since Thursday, or have UN and other aid organizations been allowed to continue delivering? And the second question connected, has there been any outcome from Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu and Defense Minister Israel Katz ordering the IDF to come up with a new plan for aid distribution in Gaza by Saturday? Okay, thank you for those questions, Lior. Lior, the Hamas terror organization is operating to prevent the direct distribution of food to the civilian population. We've shared with you that Hamas starves its own people and shoots its own people and systematically endangers them from getting the aid from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Now, following information that Hamas continues to take control over the humanitarian aid that enters northern Gaza, the IDF was instructed by the political leadership to come up with an action plan against Hamas's despicable behavior, and Israel, through the IDF, continues to enable the distribution of humanitarian aid directly to the residents of Gaza in order to ensure that no hunger crisis develops in Gaza. Aid currently enters only via Kerem Shalom, via the Kerem Shalom crossing, and trucks carrying food, medicine, basic goods, and medical equipment are continuously entering Gaza. In addition, medical teams from international organizations also continue to enter Gaza on a regular basis, and we continue to monitor and follow the humanitarian situation in Gaza. The IDF is operating to prevent any harm to civilians in Gaza and is working to enable food and aid reaching the population at these distribution points, and we categorically reject any of these claims regarding what some have reported, the undiluted news, which pseudo-news, which Hamas have shared with them, which unfortunately is repeated by too many news outlets, of intentional firing at uninvolved persons. This is incorrect. Now, where there have been unfortunate incidents, there have been investigated and steps are being taken as necessary. But of course, never, the IDF never, ever, ever targets civilians. Okay, when I have more information on that, Lior, I will share it with you. Next question is from Nick Robertson from CNN. And I think yours is a similar question, so I'll just read it out. And has the IDF presented two options to the Prime Minister? One, a deal, two, continued military operation that will include losses. Has the Prime Minister prioritised the release of hostages over detect? I don't know what that's. I'm not sure what your question is of Hamas. That's from Nick Robertson at CNN. Thank you for that question, Nick. And sorry, you've written it. Sorry. Okay, you've shared with me a correction, Nick. If you allow me, I'll read it out again with your correction. Has the IDF presented two options to the Prime Minister? One, a deal, two, continued military operation, and will that include losses? Has the Prime Minister prioritised release of hostages over the defeat of Hamas? Thank you for that question, Nick. I think in my briefing just earlier, I shared with you what the latest from the Prime Minister, and I can say that is most definitely the latest from the Prime Minister. And that is that, as the Prime Minister said, we're exercising our right to defend ourselves. We believe this is a just war. And also, to share with you, as I said, that the Prime Minister is working to end the campaign in Gaza through the release of the hostages and the defeat of Hamas as soon as possible. Okay, I'll repeat that again so you have it. As I said just in the beginning of this briefing, that the Prime Minister is working to end the campaign in Gaza through the release of the hostages and the defeat of Hamas as soon as possible. The obstacle, as ever, Nick, this is very important, this is a key point, lies with Hamas, the terrorist organization, who have always consistently walked away from a potential deal to get our hostages out. But we are working through various means to overcome that, and with the success of Operation Rising Lion, in partnership with our American allies, there are many opportunities which have opened up now following the victory against Iran. Most notably is that Iran was Hamas's proxy, with Iran greatly diminished their nuclear capacity, their nuclear weapons capacity, and their ballistic missile capacity. Hamas have once again nowhere to go. Okay, next question, please. Okay, another question from David Clement. Another question from David Clement from the News Forum. Would the Israeli government be open to Hamas officials leaving Gaza to live in exile as part of the terms to end the war? Thank you for that question, David. Yes, the Prime Minister has stated many times that we want Hamas to lay down their weapons and release their hostages. And when we say lay down their weapons, that does include, as the Prime Minister has stated in public many times, safe passage to another country and not to return to Gaza. Just to go back to the point, I'm not sure if I answered your question properly, Leo Soroka from the Washington Post. Yes, indeed, the UN is sending in materials into Gaza. They are allowed to put through materials into Gaza, as I think I stated in our briefing. Okay, let's take the next question, please. Alon Avital from NPR. Can you comment on the Harets report regarding the IDF and GHF sites? And also, can you comment on a report of a strike on Evin prison in Tehran that killed what Iran says are 71 people, and how that strike fit into the initial stated aim of targeting nuclear sites? Okay, firstly, on the first point about the Haaretz article from NPR, I'll just go back to that question so I can read it properly. Alon, the Prime Minister made a very forceful comment in partnership with the Defence Minister about the falseness of that Haaretz piece. It is incorrect. It is not true. And unfortunately, the sources of disinformation have come from many different sources during this war, including, unfortunately, from Haaretz. Now, the Prime Minister, I can point you to that comment. I think he made it on Friday afternoon, if I'm not mistaken, so I'll point you to the precise words which the Prime Minister have made. But of course, it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, that the IDF never, ever, ever directs its fire at civilians. Our war against the Hamas terror organization is against Hamas, not against Gazan civilians. Gazans are victims of Hamas as well, which is why we are freeing Gaza from Hamas to provide a better future for all the people in this region. The next comment, the next question you were asking about Evin prison. Sorry, just go back to the last question, if you could, about Evin prison in Tehran that killed. You're saying that it, yeah. Look, there's a limited amount of what I can share with you, Alon, on the Evin prison issue. The IDF has spoken about this, so I would ask you to go back to the IDF sources, which are published now. I would recommend their Telegram feed, which is particularly effective, where the rationale the rationale of blowing the gates off the Evin prison, which is where all of the political prisoners or anyone that speaks out against the Iranian regime, that's where they're sent, where they unfortunately are incarcerated against their will, or where they are disappeared as well, or murdered and tortured. This is everyone in Iran knows this fact about the Evin prison. Our objective was to blow the gates off that prison. And if you want further information, you can go to the IDF regarding that site, that issue. Okay, I think this is Jean. Next question from Jean Malta from PBS National TV. Okay, you're saying, your question to me, it says, it's atrocious what happened on October 7th, but what do you comment on the systematic killing of, and you give a Hamas figure of 50,000 civilians in Gaza by the Israeli army? Also, since US journalists are, since US journalists allowed inside Gaza, and hence we can't independently verify what's happening at aid distribution sites, what video footage do you have of Hamas fighters shooting at Gazan civilians, please? Okay, Jean, thank you for that question. So you start off by condemning the Hamas atrocities. I mean, I'm not sure what my reaction to that is. I mean, that proves you're a human being. Congratulations. And the next part about you saying about over 50,000 civilians. Now, this is a Hamas figure. it is a Hamas figure, whether it's from the Gazan Health Ministry, which is Hamas, or whether it's from the civil guard of Gaza, which is Hamas. I can't imagine the figures being shared from any other terrorist organization being taken in that way. And I would remind you as well that Hamas does not differentiate between its own terrorists and civilians. They do not differentiate. Now, the world experts on civilian warfare, on warfare in urban areas, for instance, John Spencer, who is a world-renowned expert on urban warfare, he has said that no other country has done more to limit civilian casualties than the IDF. Okay, so that figure you're sharing with me, firstly, it's released by Hamas. Now, let's just break this down for a second. Hamas are a terrorist organization. Whoever says anything which could be construed against Hamas inside Gaza, and they release some information to the outside world, they are immediately killed. Immediately, they are killed. Immediately, anyone that says anything negative about Hamas is murdered. That is why that all of this evidence, pseudo-evidence that you are sharing with me, these are Hamas-cleared figures. Firstly, they do not differentiate between a terrorist and civilian. And all the experts in urban warfare have said that Israel, no other country has got it as low as 1-to-1. I would remind you that other armies in Mosul, in Iraq or in other places have much higher civilian casualty figures, 1-to-7. Now, when it comes to footage, that we have released footage of Hamas shooting their own people. We have released footage. There was been multiple incidents, and those footage is available on the IDF website. I recommend their Telegram feed, but there are many examples, unfortunately, of Hamas murdering its own citizens. In this briefing, I shared with you that Hamas does not want the new aid distribution service to work for two reasons. Number one, we're separating the two things: aid distribution and Hamas. Hamas were using the aid, stealing the aid. They were charging their own people, Gene, charging their own people. This is a right for Gazans who need this aid to get it for free. It is extortion to charge Gazans who should get this aid for free, which Israel has facilitated to get into Gaza, which other countries have generously donated. It is extortion to charge their own people. And secondly, this is their key way of staying in power, which is why, as this conflict continues, especially at this point, Hamas will come up with more and more outrageous claims, like these, this tired phrase which is being repeated, unfortunately, by too many in the media, which says, people queuing up for food were attacked. The IDF never attacks people queuing up for food. Hamas, on the other hand, does, because they want to hold on to power. And, for Hamas, Gazans are expendable. They say this very, very clearly. The one thing we learned here in Israel is when our enemies say things, we believe them. They have said very, very clearly that their own people are expendable towards their own jihadist aims. Okay, you've asked the same question twice. I think this is the last question from Howard Goller from Reuters. Israeli government has been providing funds for GHF operations. Are these for security operations or for the actual aid that GHF is distributing in Gaza? Can we please get a statement on what funds the Israeli government has allocated GHF, for what purposes? Have those funds been transferred to GHF or not? Hello, Howard Goller from Reuters. I don't have any information on that. I shared with you the situation on aid. It is the Hamas terror organization which is operating to prevent direct distribution of food to the civilian areas, civilian population areas. It starves its own people. It systematically endangers them. And when Hamas, as they have recently, taken control of some of the humanitarian aid that enters northern Gaza, our political echelon, the government, have instructed the IDF to come up with an action plan against Hamas' despicable behaviour. Now, this GHF is a separate organisation. It is supported by our allies in the US. It is not an Israeli organisation. And if you want further information about GHF, then I recommend Howard Goller from Reuters that you contact GHF directly. I saw an interview with GHF on Sky News, I believe, yesterday, over the last couple of days, and I would point you to that, which may answer your questions. Okay, my friends, that is that the last question? That is the last question. Is there another one here? Yeah, let's just go back to that last question. Thank you for your detailed answer. This is from Jean Malta from PBS. Why don't you let us journalists view the information for ourselves? Okay, with GHF and IDF. Okay, so the IDF does take journalists into Gaza to see things for themselves. But I would remind you, as journalists who have served, I'm talking about Gazans, I'm talking about external journalists that have served in Gaza and reported from Gaza, they state this in a crystal clear manner, that anyone that reports anything hostile to the Hamas regime is immediately sanctioned. Either they are chucked out or they are not allowed to release that information. So this idea that while Hamas is in power in Gaza, that journalists will be able to run around Gaza and share with us what's going on there, that is a fallacy. Hamas murders anyone that says anything negative about the Hamas terrorist organization. Jean, that is a fact. Okay, let's not be naive that in some way that it is anything other than that fact. And people that have worked with the AP have shared this in a crystal clear manner. If you are an external journalist and you say anything negative, which can be construed as negative, about the Hamas terrorist organization, you are threatened, and more likely you're either ejected or you are killed. Okay, so that is the last question today. Thank you for joining us. We'll have another briefing again shortly. In the meantime, you can contact us for interviews or for any other questions you may have in the usual way. Please do stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.